There's this thing, Funny Girl Vintage.
What's that?
You've never heard of Funny Girl Vintage?
No.
What planet have you been on? Funny Girl Vintage has all the hottest looks to make you feel your best, look your best, and just, like, if you don't have style, just go to Funny Girl Vintage.
But do they have timeless classics?
They have timeless classics. Vintage, unique pieces that you, like, didn't even know were available to buy.
I need that.
You do need that. I mean, I love your style, but, like, who doesn't need a little, like, refresher?
I need that.
So head over to funnygirlvintage.com or their Instagram at funnygirlvintage. You can make an appointment in the showroom for their showroom.
Yeah.
You can also just, you know, browse the items and maybe press add to cart. And if you do so, you might want to add in where it says code the word night.
How do you spell that?
N-I-G-H-T.
One more time.
N-I-G-H-T.
And what do I get with that?
10% off.
Stop.
Any purchase, 10%.
Slay.
Who doesn't like a deal?
In this economy?
In this economy, you need a deal. So go ahead. Everyone shop Funny Girl Vintage, our incredible sponsor.
And we thank Funny Girl Vintage for sponsoring this podcast.
We love you.
Welcome back to Night School. I'm Jessie Zand.
I'm Alana Cloud Robinson.
I'm Isabella Hunter.
Well, guys, yeah, what's been going on? Nothing big, right? Nothing earth-shattering or anything, right?
Not for me.
No.
Definitely not.
Definitely not for you. No.
No.
Yeah, so as you guys saw in the pre-roll from the previous episodes, those were filmed before the fires. If you're not aware and you're living under a rock, congrats, that's probably fireproof. But if you are aware, you aren't, Los Angeles has been hit by two massive wildfires. One of them in the Palisades community, which is where Alana and I went to high school, and the other is in the Altadena, Pasadena community that was ravaged by the Eaton fires. It's safe to say that if you live in Los Angeles, born and raised or not, you know at least one person or many that were affected by these fires. Again, we're gonna talk about it obviously on this episode because how could we not? But we definitely don't. We also don't want to dwell on it. Like, this is the purpose of this podcast is to be an escape for a moment, for an hour, for you to tune in and tune out and listen to this as you're cleaning or whatever you do.
And it's been enough time now that I feel like everyone's in like the restoration recovery process.
The rebuild.
Yeah. And everyone's really trying to move forward. Not like forget it, but like
some people are.
Yeah. Some people are like, I don't
want to over it.
Yeah. Some people are incredibly
that's
forgetful,
it's traumatic.
it seems. Yeah, it's traumatic. And I think, we wanted to start this off a little bit and kind of, Alana and I specifically, this has really brought up a lot of feelings for us. And I mean, obviously Izzie as well, being close to multiple communities across and having friends, within each of them.
Yeah, and I lived in Topanga for 6 months.
This is the largest wildfire in U.S. history.
The most expensive natural disaster in U.S. history.
The most expensive natural disaster in U.S. history. The expanse at which the devastation has hit is beyond comprehension. I mean, not only has the Palisades community been absolutely leveled, but also in Altadena, it is a similar level of devastation, which are two, the Palisades is known as like, I think this common conception that it is this incredibly wealthy community, but there are many people who lived in the Palisades that are similar to my family, which is, they bought their house 30, 40 years ago, or it's been passed down through generations.
My mom rented. I grew up in the Palisades. We rented.
Yeah.
My best friend lived across from Gelson's, rented.
This socioeconomic trend, and I think it's really emblematic and displayed in Los Angeles of house rich, cash poor.
Yeah.
My family in particular is one of those houses. Like my dad bought our home in Mar Vista when he was 29, a year older than me. And he bought it for, I think, maybe close to $200,000, which, by the way, I'd done my research too. In the Palisades in the mid-1980s, the median home cost to buy a home in the Palisades was $212,000, which is now it has, the median home value has increased 200% since then. And it is now, these homes are worth, $2 million, $3 million, $4 million. And they're not necessarily new houses. There are these houses that were purchased in the 80s, maybe remodeled around that time, and then have been passed down through families. There is now video footage of the fire starting in Altadena from a faulty power line. And so those families are entitled to sue Edison, the electrical company that manages those power lines. And so they may be entitled to some additional compensation outside of what they will receive from insurance. The Palisades fire, it's still unclear how that started. There's been no evidence to indicate that it was some sort of faulty power line. If anything, there's been evidence to indicate that it was done by someone. And again, I know people are probably like, we're so done talking about the fires. But for me, the purpose of this, and quite frankly, I'm not, and I won't be, because this has changed all of our lives in a way that is irrevocable and will affect future generations. And I think having this conversation, as much as this is a comedy podcast, we do talk about pretty serious topics. And I invite all of you to kind of stretch your perception for a moment of what we hear natural disasters. We hear about natural disasters all the time. And I think particularly in California, we've heard about natural disasters in places like Florida and hurricanes. And we, myself included, would look at that devastation, and it was almost like the reaction that I at least would have would be like, wow, look at that. Look at what Mother Nature's done. And I that's completely understandable because you don't have any context and you've never been through that situation. But when you live through a natural disaster, which, newsflash, guys, that's our future. Due to climate change, we will be experiencing natural weather events that are natural disaster weather events for the rest of our lifetimes and our children's lifetimes.
We already have natural
extreme weather events. Extreme weather events. Again, those fires, part of the reason that they were the reason they were so devastating was because we had historic winds, hurricane level winds, 100-mile-an-hour winds.
It was crazy. It was shaking my house.
Yeah,
and I was nowhere near them.
And this is just the wind, not even the fire. So to the point where airplanes were being grounded at LAX, and when that type of wind is happening, planes can't be flying. So all of the firefighting, like the fire retardant and stuff, none of that could be dropped during those fires because of the level of the wind.
Yeah, I think we should clarify that like the most effective way to fight wildfires is with some kind of air transportation.
Yeah.
Whether it's a plane or a helicopter dropping water.
Which we saw once those winds subsided in the following days. But part of what was so devastating was that we didn't have, first of all, Karen Bass, you dumb fuck, cut the fire department's budget.
Don't forget Gavin Newsom.
And don't forget the villain of all.
$70 billion bill that in 2014 to create more water infrastructure.
We all fall on different levels of the political spectrum. And that's why I love doing this with these two women, is because we have such a nuanced, diverse opinions that span the political spectrum. But for me, I have felt like this has galvanized something within me that I at least will be talking about it more, because the level of failure that our government has, the failures that our government has provided us in the lack of infrastructure, the lack of support, has been cataclysmic to our community. It's devastating. And if you would like to support any of the families, if you feel so inclined to donate, I have created a master spreadsheet with over 225 Palisades families. It grows by the day. In addition to that, I've also compiled a list of Eaton families that have been directly affected by the fires who all have GoFundMes. The URL is tinyurl.com/support Pally. There are multiple tabs, multiple families across both regions that have that need aid. And so to our international folks, I don't know if you can donate on GoFundMe, but please share it. Please share this list out with people that you know that might be inclined to donate. If you don't have the means to donate yourself, sharing it goes a long way. And so I really encourage people right now. Mutual aid has been the beauty of this disaster. I know something we wanted to talk about was kind of the volunteer efforts that we had all been involved in. And Alana, I want you to kind of speak to what you witnessed at the donation centers and stuff. But first and foremost, there is a wonderful organization in Los Angeles called Pair and Care, along with 24 LA Love, that has been supporting the fire victims in Los Angeles. Started by this creative app called Nova. It's something that I've been we've all gone and volunteered at, and it's this beautiful organization where they have all these young Angelinos in their 20s and 30s have created this program that is just so inspirational and beautiful. But They have, myself included, have reached out to various brands to donate new items, essential items, whether that's clothing, suitcases. It's called Pair and Care. If you're in the Los Angeles area, obviously. And Pair and Care will reach out to you and they will pair you with a family that has lost everything. And you will go to their warehouse in Hollywood and you will pack a suitcase for this family based on what their needs are. And then you will go drop it off and deliver it directly to them. I know Alana, in the early days of the fire, you were at the donation centers. And if you want to talk a little bit about that and what you saw.
I'll talk a little bit about it. I just I think that especially as things develop, I think it's important that people use common sense in terms of being directly helpful. So, if you're volunteering for any of these organizations, let's say you have a family who's like, we really just want a toaster. And, you're like, okay, well, we don't have toasters. There needs to be with some of the efforts that I was witnessing, it was like there was kind of like a point where people really just really wanted to follow orders, but then couldn't really think for themselves past a certain point. If your family really needs a toaster, post on your Instagram and say, hey, can I get some donations to buy a toaster, and go buy a toaster at Target and bring them a toaster. And I think that's simple. Yeah. And I think that people need to be better at, if they're being helpful, they need to be better at bending the rules a little bit and doing things that are helpful
finding
without
a different route.
We don't need just, it's like
working for, you're not working for the volunteer.
It's funny. I keep thinking about like Monty Python would always talk, had a lot of jokes about like bureaucracy, like this idea someone's, my spleen is, I've ruptured my appendix. And it's like, please fill out the appendix rupture form. Yeah. And we'll get you in 6 to 8 business days. And I think that there's a little bit of bureaucracy that's taken over with the volunteering stuff. So I just want to, for anybody that's trying to get involved in that, I withdrew from the bigger organizations and stuff and just focused on helping my immediate friends.
Same.
And just because, like I said, it was like I wanted to go and be able to kind of create like an assembly line of some kind, but it was like people needed specific things. You have to remember, like, there are a lot of people that have had an immediate need. I need water, I need underwear, things like that. But as time goes on, especially, we've kind of, had this war-torn country attitude about it. And a lot of people are really looking to replace the things they had.
And think about it too, like you've lost everything you've ever owned. Like, and I understand too, home is not there are many people in this country, in this world, that have not experienced a place by which they feel safe, and like that idea of home doesn't necessarily connect with them, but you've at least had somewhere to store your shit. Yeah. Now imagine that has been eviscerated, burned to the ground. Everything you've ever owned is gone. You are starting at zero. And it's not like you're just a young person. There are people in their 80s who've lost their home, and you're now having to start from your medication, your underwear, socks, toothbrush, toothpaste. I mean,
artwork, family memories, your kids'
family
paintings,
memories. The last thing you want to do, and you already feel like a burden. You've lived on your own for decades, and now you are having to ask for help from other people. That's already a really stigmatizing, ostracizing feeling. Give them the dignity to give them something new.
And also something that they want.
And they want.
Ask them what they want.
And that's been the beauty of seeing Pair for Care for me.
Yeah. And just like non-essential things too. I think that's really important. Yeah. Like I gave my friend some canvases the other day because I was like, you lost all your art supplies.
Yeah.
Like, fuck. Like, what can I help with?
No, absolutely.
What do I have that I can just, you you never want to give someone anything like old or bad, but you want to see what you can find and see what people need. It's going to be a while.
It is going to be a while. And the other, the other thing too that I think is important to say is I'm trying to stay off the comment sections of things, but it's hard because throughout this whole process, it was like I couldn't tear my eyes away from videos and photos. And I also have having grown up in the Palisades, I have a vested interest in it being rebuilt. And for a while, I was going down this rabbit hole of like celebrity real estate agents talking about how everyone's going to flee. And I needed to look at the comments to see people saying like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm rebuilding and all this stuff. But I think that culturally we've gotten really into the trauma Olympics, where we feel like we need to only uplift the most significant trauma. It's just there's been a culture now where people are almost looking for a reason not to feel empathy. And I think that if you've been someone who hasn't necessarily been charitable or caring or whatever, like there's this attitude that you have to be a saint in order to receive care and compassion. And I don't agree with that. I think that like directly goes against like the principles of compassion and empathy. You don't give compassion and empathy to people because you've determined that they are worthy of having this bestowed upon them. You give it freely and willingly and with an open heart.
Like Jesus.
Like Jesus. It's literally like that's the principle to hold on to. And when I see people kind of like articles having breakdowns of why the Altadena fires are so much more devastating than the Palisades fires because of the socioeconomic situation. And it's difficult to read these like breakdowns, these intellectual breakdowns. And also I'm truly coming from a personal perspective, because everywhere that I grew up, everywhere that I spent my childhood, teenhood, everything is gone. It's a crater, and that sucks. But at the same, it's just I highly encourage people, and this is it's a lesson I think for all of us, because there's certainly been times where I've looked at something at arm's length and made sort of like intellectual judgments about something. But I think this situation impacting a city that I think felt like it was somewhat impervious to things like this happening. I think this is a lesson for all of us to just have more compassion and not need to play that game of determining what is more significant, what is worthy of attention, what isn't worthy of attention. Trauma, pain, destruction, devastation anywhere is horrible.
It's a universal.
We have to just hold each other and uplift each other. And there's no point in doing trauma.
Yeah, and I think before we pivot to some fun memories, to just piggyback off that, Alana, like losing your childhood home, losing the home you raised a family in, I don't care how much money you have, that is a traumatic experience. Because a house is more than just its physical being. It is a collection of memories, and memories of relationships with your loved ones. And that is not something that can be replaced. They may rebuild. There may be families who are better off socioeconomically, who are able to rebuild, but that doesn't take away the trauma of having that home and those memories and that life that they built together burned to the ground. There's nothing more horrific than having to sift through 60 plus years of a life together that's been charred beyond recognition. And this is the reality of living in the era and time that we all live in now, and that climate change is going to affect all of our lives.
We're now facing, this is a story for another day, but we're now facing a public health crisis that's going to be emerging in the next few months because the water has been affected. And for whatever reason, they're not talking about it. And they're saying that it's confined to these specific zones. Yeah, there's videos of people pouring milky water from their tap in Koreatown, which is not under a water advisory. So
yeah, so
I wouldn't
when you
drink
start
even
seeing
filtered
us
water.
grow horns out of our head because of the contamination,
Asbestos.
and we start looking like the creature from Substance, that's why. Yeah.
Well, benzene is like the biggest issue, and unfortunately, it's like you're like, I feel like it's common sense. Like you'd be like, oh, I'll just use hot water to clean things because there's contaminants, but it vaporizes and it's carcinogenic.
Great.
So
lovely.
That's why I've been taking cold showers. Finally got my Wim Hof lifestyle going on after all this time.
Yeah.
I'm finally taking all the supplements my mom tells me to take all the time.
Yeah, I texted your mom. I was like, girl, give me the cocktail stat.
Activated charcoal.
Yeah.
Activated charcoal.
I think also too, so just to pivot to some more happy memories too, and we can conclude our 20-minute saga fire stories. But
I know we were like, we'll touch on it briefly.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we're talking about it. But Another really big piece of why this, I think, has affected Alana and I and Izzie and the youngins in Los Angeles is the Palisades was a place where when you live in Los Angeles and you grow up in the city, you oftentimes live very far away from your friends. And we don't have public transportation here. And so what the Palisades offered the kids on the West Side was a place where we could all congregate and have a small town experience in a very large city. And so this place held so many memories for all of us. Specifically Alana and I, who did go to Pali, and watching your high school burn on CNN and watching your high school scoreboard light up like a fucking firework while some douchebag with his jacket clipped is like pointing at it was a fucking bizarre experience that I wish upon no one. I now see at this 30,000 foot view how special it was to have a community where I could run around freely as a teenager without having to fear the repercussions of crime, or not repercussions. I wouldn't have to fear, being kidnapped or, whatever, or being hurt or putting myself in a situation that was dangerous. I was free to be a kid. And you don't really have that freedom growing up in a big city. You have to have your wits about you. It's Los Angeles. It's like growing up in Los Angeles. It's akin almost to growing up in New York. You have to be aware of your surroundings. And the Palisades offered all of us city kids a reprieve. It offered us a moment where we could just be kids. It didn't matter where we were, and it didn't matter where we came from. We had this community, and now that's gone. And the kids below us who did go to Pali, who were in the midst of being able to access that, they don't have that anymore. They don't even know where Pali Charter High is going to be. Like, they still have to find leasing for the school in the middle of the school year. I mean, the devastation is beyond comprehension. So again, I don't know what happy memories I was saying that we were going to touch on, but I think that concludes the fire saga.
There was no Friday night like getting out of school, going and hanging out at the Starbucks, seeing what's going on, and then going and taking the big blue bus to Venice.
Yep.
And at Venice, there was this old couple, mom and pop, and they would always go, "Are you 21?" And I go, "Of course." Yeah. And then we'd buy Four Locos.
The original kind, the OG with the caffeine that could kill you.
Yeah. We'd buy the OG Four Locos, watermelon, or lemonade. And we'd get a pack of American Spirits. We'd all get them. Classic. And then we'd take the bus back to the Palisades, and we'd go hang out at my friend's house who lived by Gelson's. And we'd just party and have the best time. I have the happiest memories that I didn't realize were the happiest memories until recently. It's nice to be, that's the one thing I'm trying to be like, bittersweetness is being able to look at those things and go, God, that was beautiful. Or like, I remember one time there was a huge party in the Highlands, and I was so happy because
it was close.
I could actually, and I got my mom to drop me off, and we all had Four Locos again. The Four Loko was really the
that was the drink of high school.
It was the drink of high school.
We're not gonna lie there.
And there was this massive party in the Highlands, because we lived in the condos like right across.
And for those who aren't familiar, the Highlands was the more mountainous region within the Palisades that required a bit more of driving to get up. It wasn't within the city center.
Have a car.
You had to have a car.
Yeah.
It's a little bit farther down Sunset, and then was up in the hills more. And that community has also been devastated, leveled.
Still not sure what the deal is. Haven't obviously really seen anything. I've seen a little bit of it, but no clue what it looks like. Don't really want to know. Like, let people go in and take care of their own communities
and find their stuff that might be.
And also just to expedite this effort, but also just like there could be, rather than figuring out for like 6 months how exactly this cleanup is going to happen, as the rains come, we had a little bit of rain, but as more rains come and continue to wash all that toxic debris into our water, into our ground, into our soil, have people start to go in, but put an effort towards getting the proper equipment for them.
Yeah. I mean, and to the point about going through your own stuff, like one of my dear friends, Caitlin Doran, shout out Caitlin and Tiptoe, TikTok, if you want to follow her journey with her 175-pound tortoise. She, I love a plug. And so does she. Her family, and I very much, if you would like to see some of the in-depth kind of play-by-play of how that fire went down, I would definitely recommend that you check out her channel because her family was fighting the fires at her home from 10 a.m. to midnight that night. And she has some really harrowing footage of that. So if you're curious and haven't had enough trauma porn yet, take a gander.
Shout out to the people that defended their homes. That's it. One last little soapbox is like, I see so many people in these comments talking about, why wouldn't you leave? Why wouldn't you leave? That's so stupid. California burns every single year. This is the worst one, but it burns every year. And there's always stories every year. Everybody knows someone who stayed, sprayed their roof down, and saved their home from being destroyed. This happens every year in LA, and Malibu especially. There's always people that stay and spray down their homes. So this idea that anybody that didn't leave immediately is an idiot is, you just don't understand.
Yeah.
People didn't know how bad this was going to be. I know a lot of people who either did try to stay or wanted to stay, some people who did stay to try to protect their homes because this is what happens.
Yeah.
So that idea that it's like, why wouldn't you, the government's telling you, they say a lot of things. And people have, there's been people who are like, they stayed, sprayed down their roofs, sprayed down their surrounding areas, and the houses on both sides were destroyed in previous fires.
Yeah.
So like that idea, just like that needs to be better understood.
Yeah.
It's not crazy to stay.
Yeah. And the only reason that my
your home.
friend's family didn't stay was because they lost water at midnight.
Yeah.
And by then, that's when the fire department had come to the alphabet streets and it was already entirely on fire. But to your point about going through your rubble, she did have the opportunity to go back and go, oh my God, chills. She did have the opportunity to go back and look through her stuff, and they were able to find a necklace that was passed down from the 1800s from her family, and in the safe, in the fireproof safe that was still.
What brand of fireproof safe?
It was like from the 30s, but
no, my friend who lost his place, there was a safe there too, and the safe survived.
and
but all the papers within it
burned. And but this one piece of Art Deco jewelry that was worn by all the women in her family on their wedding day.
I think I saw it on TikTok. Was it like a kind of little
yes. Yeah, it was. That was the only thing that's
beautiful. That's a beautiful piece. That's amazing.
And so I just watching these people lose, like watching people that lose everything, has been just devastating. This has affected so many people, and I urge you to have some compassion for people that you don't know but can empathize with. Because if you lost your childhood home, I think it would be pretty fucking heartbreaking.
I'm not gonna lie, I did see people like joking about it. Some people cannot wait 24 hours to not post something online that gets them attention. I'm serious. You have posting disease. If you can't wait 24 hours to post something because there's a natural disaster in your city and people or like friends of friends are losing their homes, like, and you need to make some joke about how like that relating to the fires, like you really don't. You have posting disease.
Or you need to make an infographic about why people eating the rich. Not the time.
Yeah, not the
time. Do
time.
something.
Because guess what? It wasn't just rich people who lost their homes.
Yes,
it was
also, I'm sorry, but like, I have empathy for rich people.
Yeah, same.
Controversial statement.
My favorite people are rich.
But I have empathy for anybody who's gone through, whose fucking house burns down.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay, in the tiers of fucked up, I've really been thinking about this. House burning down, top tier fucked up. I think maybe like unjustly going to prison might be the one that trumps
I don't think we can even like compare and contrast. It's horrible. It's just horrible. Like, period. Bottom line, it's traumatizing. It's horrible. Even as someone who I didn't lose my house, a few of my close friends lost their homes. I feel traumatized just by seeing my city burn. Like everybody who loves the city is hurting.
If you're a fucking transplant and you have not in some way stepped up to donate any of your fucking time and you've just been sitting on your fucking hands because this shit hasn't affected you,
leave.
Go fuck yourself. You are profiting off this city and you are not giving anything back to it. And I will fucking remember
Don't come to Malibu. Yeah. Honestly, the people
get
who
out the beach, get off the beach. I am not tolerating this shit. Transplants, you are on my fucking watch list. And by transplants, I mean anybody who's moved here within the last 5 years.
I saw a lot of foolishness of people leaving, partying, having a lack of sensitivity to the issue. Obviously, it bothered me and there's a level of judgment, but if you are not able to rally around a cause and to feel a deep sense of empathy and to have a desire to protect a place that has sheltered you, taken care of you, you've enjoyed in some capacity,
given you job opportunities,
and this is not direct, totally different kind of thing, but like you know, fled sort of without regret and are now kind of talking about abandoning LA entirely. I just feel bad for you that you haven't been able to connect with this beautiful place.
Yeah.
And that in
leave.
general that that is your instinct, and that you're not able to connect to things on a deeper level in that way. And I don't really have any ill will towards you. I don't think you're somebody that I can necessarily have a deep relationship with, because we're going to be different in the way that we conduct ourselves.
Fundamentally.
But I say, you know, go with God. Do what you got to do.
Yeah.
I don't really,
honestly.
I don't have this is such a vital issue to me, and it's going to continue to be one. And we're going to have to be radicalized in California and really fight for our city, fight for our state. And I just I don't even want you, no disrespect, I don't even want you there.
Yeah, no, I truly.
No, don't come
if you
to the
just want to
marches.
process
I just
off
want
of
you
the
to
city and not.
just do what you need to do. That's my perspective. Do whatever you need to do.
But don't be coming around me.
But
Don't come around
be there
Jesse.
with your full heart, your full spirit, whatever you're able to do.
Because I'm ready to
or
drag a
just
bitch
don't.
by their hair out this motherfucking city.
She wants to fight. Jesse
a
really wants
diverse
to fight.
opinion
Yeah.
podcast.
Girl,
This is what
I
we're
almost
talking
fought a bitch
about.
yesterday. I am not here to play anymore. I stand 10 toes down for this fucking city, and if you're gonna step to me, get ready, because I will fucking swing. I am not playing around anymore. And I think as young people, if you come away from this and you're like, wow, how depressing, what do I do? Okay, donate directly to families. That's one thing you can do. If you can't donate, share. Sharing is the bare minimum. Sharing resources is the bare minimum of what you can do. The other thing you can do is donate your time. If you can't donate your time, again, share so that people who are interested in donating their time know where to go do that. Go with God. Do what you need to do. Vacate this city.
We're the center of the entertainment industry, and you guys sure as hell like being entertained.
Yeah.
So support us. Imagine if all of LA burned down. You'd have no movies, no shows.
Yeah. And this has
Boo-hoo.
already affected a
And
city
you guys
that
would be
has been
complaining about it.
and Los Angeles and Hollywood and show business has already been incredibly impacted by the writer's strike, and a lot of
I know
productions.
so many productions are already moving out. It's like imperative right now.
Also, it's a weird side thing. Every casting audition thing I've received since the fires has been shooting out of the city.
That's
in
what
San
I was scared
Francisco
about.
and
I don't like
Phoenix,
that. I
like
will.
all these other places. So.
If I make anything this year, I will go out of my way to make sure the entire crew is from LA.
Yeah.
And
shout out Nova, the app, because they are an app that you can download to hire freelancers within Los Angeles, and it's now more important than ever that we support the young creatives in this town who are suffering.
It's not in poor taste to be in LA working and showcasing LA. Like,
Yeah,
I know there was
not at all.
There was a moment of silence, which was necessary to focus on figuring out what to do to help people since we had been abandoned by our government. In general, that moment has passed as we are in the rebuild phase. So shoot in LA, bring things to LA, work in LA.
If you guys need advice, you guys can ask us anything totally anonymously, tinyurl.com/night school advice. Here we fucking go.
Scared.
I can't tell if this couple is autistic and hates me or wants me to be their third. How should I move forward?
I feel like I've had this happen
scenario.
to me.
Yeah.
like a few times. Yeah.
How did you handle it?
I just kind of like hung out and just like felt it out. There was one situation, I don't want to go into too much detail because I really don't want it to be like revealed, like the situation, because I feel like they would probably think I was crazy if they heard this. But there was a situation where I joked prior to hanging out with a couple that was what they were angling for. And then I was hanging out and I was like, oh, confirmed. Comments were being made.
Yeah.
I basically, there was like the end of the night, like, oh, do you want to come back and hang out kind of thing. And I was very late and I just lied and said, I want to stay at the club. So I just stayed at the club.
Instead of saying I want to go home, you said I
No,
want to stay at the
No,
club.
because it was like, we'll give you a ride kind of thing. And I was like, no, I'll just stay at the club. So I stayed at the club
see.
by myself for like an extra 40 minutes, just like,
Yeah.
and they were like, are you sure? And I was like, no,
Escaping the
I'm having a
throuple.
great time. I just want to, yeah.
I mean, if you're trying to be the unicorn in this couple, I think you got to.
Yeah, it depends on if you want it. Because here's
Yeah.
the thing: is you just have to feel it out. I think the best thing to do
know.
is to like, you got to talk around it. You got to be like,
Wouldn't it be so funny if we all fucked?
yeah, direct approach.
Funny. Yeah, it'll be so funny.
What if
You
we
just
all-
gotta like
what a
talk
good joke.
about.
What if we all bump nasties?
Yeah, you got to talk about something. I think the way you got to say something about like like. You got to talk about like, even if it's fictitious, you bring up like a past relationship and you're like, yeah, like we were just, if you want it. If you don't want it, then you like reverse all of this. But if you want it, you got to be like, yeah, in my last relationship, we just had a lot of differences, like I'm a very kind of like sexually explorative, like free kind of person. And he was like really square.
That's good.
And there was like a conversation about like maybe opening things up. And he was just like really close-minded and he wasn't into it. And I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but I was just more open to that kind of experience.
Yeah.
And then you see if they withdraw and don't want to hang out with you anymore, or if they are like, whoa, that's so crazy.
You'll be able to tell
You know,
from
you'll
their
be
eyes.
able to tell from that,
their-
yeah.
Literally from their eyes. People either go like,
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's
Wheels
so
start
annoying when
turning
people are
or
so
just like-
prudish and don't want to have sex with their friends. That's so crazy. And then
why can't we all just have an orgy like Kate Moss in London in 1998?
Yeah. Yeah, you say stuff like that and then you
They're
just
like,
see how they
yeah.
respond.
Yeah. How is it for you to visit Europe? What's different from the US?
First, I'm going to talk about the food just because I don't think you guys realize, but in our country, they allow us to like basically put things that are not edible in our food, like to make it look red. Or
They let us eat Play-Doh here.
to preserve it
Yeah.
for 6 months in case we're in a bunker and we need to
Yeah.
Because of a natural
eat it.
disaster.
We've never really moved forward from wartime.
No.
With our income tax, with our shit food, we still think that we are in
So we
are
love
in
the
dire
food.
straits.
I could tell you multiple people I know who say that their lactose intolerance and their gluten intolerance it's unaffected in European
Yeah.
foods.
Yeah. I will also say, too, on a social level, I find when I go to Europe, people are much more friendly out in public. Like, I find that I'm able to, and I am not. Izzie, like I have to go out with Izzie because she's good at talking to people. I do not give off the air of come talk to me. In fact, I repel people in public because I don't like being approached.
People just always talk to me, and so I'm like,
I love
whatever.
being approached.
I don't like being
love being
approached.
This is a
Approach
game.
me.
I
This
think
is like
I think
Sims.
someone's trying to get something out of me, which is hilarious. But people in Europe, are so much more friendly. I feel like it's so much easier to meet people out in public. There's a level of like because I think you guys can travel so frequently within the EU. You're more inclined to kind of open yourselves up to different people.
They're more cultured. Let's be honest.
Cultured,
They're just more naturally cultured because they're surrounded by like art, like the things that we
You guys are
see as
far
like
more
hobbies.
intelligent than the average American. That's
Yeah.
one. Having a conversation with a European.
You know what? I was talking about this kind of similar last night. It's like I don't even know if it's actually more intelligent.
I don't think it's
I think what it
intelligence.
is
More
that they're
educated.
well. I don't even know. I think it's a culture that encourages critical thinking and encourages
Yes.
discourse.
Yes.
So people are used to. They've flexed that muscle of like debate and disagreement
French
without
people.
it necessarily. Yeah, but
Love
like
the
French
truly.
people love to
Yeah.
argue, and that's why I'm so French because I
But it's-
love to argue.
It's,
I love them.
But I think that's what I've observed more so is it's because like I don't know, I was with a bunch of people last night who were very educated, and we were kind of the subject kind of came up, and I think it's more about that ability. I think there's like the appearance of intelligence because if you're good at debating and arguing and like having a discourse that doesn't result in like fuck you, I hate you, you're crazy. It's a display of intelligence. If you can keep your cool, like that, I think is a huge show of intelligence. That's one of the things I think we've all probably witnessed in Europe is like you see people disagree, but then able to kind of like keep their cool. And I think that is like a huge hallmark of intelligence. I do think that's a cultural thing though. It's like like you just debate. You do that and then you go, I love you, I'll see you tomorrow.
yeah.
You know?
I think they're also just less. They're more, they have more to talk about because they're probably a little more cultured than the average American of the same age,
I will say
and
though.
less on TikTok.
I will say though, I have found that because mental health is something that is so talked about within the American culture, we have a much higher degree of comfort with talking about our own mental health struggles. And I have seen in Europe, specifically, I would say in more like Germany and even in France a little bit and Denmark.
It's kind of everywhere. They don't really talk.
Yeah, they don't really, you guys don't really talk about mental health or talk about like personal traumas and stuff, whereas we wear that as our personalities here.
But also, I will say, they probably, the medical system's so different there. And like
therapy, I mean, therapy is also like I've spoken to some Europeans, and it's
like a cultural thing.
It's
like,
a cultural thing,
Totally.
yeah. Therapy, and it's also not necessarily
New York in the
covered.
70s,
Like people
you know?
are not as medicated there by
not
any
at all.
means.
No, and so I
At
think
all.
we talk about that. I mean, we talk. Oh, are you on lorazepam? Oh, are you on Wellbutrin? I tried Wellbutrin. It gave me a seizure.
American,
Like it's like which wine have you tried this week? You know,
It's kind of like a whole country where like, you know, there's like the joke of like, you know, don't tell your depressed friend to just go for a walk. Then don't go to Europe because that entire that entire country, it's like, I'm really depressed. And they're like, go for a walk.
Get some sunshine.
And
Yeah.
they're right.
yeah.
Sometimes.
Sometimes they're
Honestly,
right.
it can start with a walk.
Yeah. It is kind of funny. Like I mean, I would say like, I wish I was a European soul. Obviously I'm like, love France. I'm obsessed with France. Love France. Love being there. I would like to think I'm a European soul. I'm really not. It's just that I'm curious, and I think I'm good at being like humble in a place where like people are always very, very kind to me when I go to Paris, like very accepting, very warm. And but I think it's less that I am like them. It's more just like an attitude that allows them to be, you know,
because
warm
I'm sure
towards
some
me.
American slobs walk in and they're like, "Where's the Mickey D's?"
That does happen.
yeah.
But I think it's funny. There's a lot of people I think that believe themselves to be European souls, but they want that more in the like romantic kind of like easy breezy way. But the reality of like a culture that doesn't really care about your feelings, that has very much accepted and intellectualized like suffering as something that's just like an inevitability. Like just funny, you know what I mean?
I'm
like
so
there's
European.
a lot of people that are like, I'm really European, but then it's like the first time they encounter, or like even the way men are differently. Like the idea of like, oh my God, I just really want to be with like a European man. They're so like, American men are horrible. Have you ever had a conversation with a European man?
Don't be fooled by the skinny
like,
jeans. They are more misogynistic and machismo.
Oh yeah,
just accept
like,
it.
You think American men are misogynistic because they like
German guys like hold my beer.
Yeah, they like said you looked pretty at the bar, and it's like, you didn't talk about my brain first, you piece of shit. And it's like, if you ever go someplace in Europe, like you might get thrown over someone's shoulder and like carried to the next bar as like a romantic gesture.
Yes.
So
which to me, I'm like, that shows effort.
Yeah.
No, but there is a cultural issue with that with American women, especially I think, where they like European men are more are better and like more refined in some capacity. It's like you have to be comfortable with like an old world traditional masculinity.
Yeah.
In order to appreciate that, and you can't delude yourself about it, because if you struggle with the way with American misogyny, then
it's much older over there.
Yeah, it's much older.
We're only 200 odd years old.
They're the final Pokemon evolution stage of misogyny. I love Europe.
I don't want to go a year without going to Europe, and it has been about a year. So
yeah, we gotta start
I
planning.
like places in Europe.
Yeah. Fair.
All right,
I mean,
ladies,
Europe's
we gotta
also
wrap it
huge.
up.
Oh yeah, sorry.
We gotta wrap it up. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining this episode. We missed you guys. Keep filling out our advice form, tinyurl.com/night school advice. See you guys next time. Bye.